During the last few months, or perhaps a year or two, this Robster Ruben Rivero channel has experienced a few transformations. Initially, it was a political debate or political analysis channel in Spanish concentrated in Venezuelan politics, which, as we all know, are time-consuming, ineffective, and exhausting, leading to nowhere. Then came the international border dispute with Guyana, and of course I maintained the official Venezuelan position, but I started listening to the other side. I went to an online conference in the University of Guyana, heard their concerns, and also became interested in the Guyana oil industry, as I am already familiar with the Venezuelan oil industry. And little by little, I realized that both countries share a lot in common. So I started asking myself, what is the use of a border dispute between Venezuela and Guyana when we should actually be working together? And of course, there is a language difference. I visited Trinidad and Tobago 24 years ago and saw the scenery very similar to Venezuelan eastern coast beaches. Even the mountains surrounding ports of Spain are similar to the mountains that surround any city in Venezuela. And so I realized that the main difference between Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana is perhaps the language, which shouldn't even be such a difference, considering that in the United States, both English and Spanish are widely spoken. So, in spite of all the troubles that politicians and educational systems on the Venezuelan side or on the Trinidad and Tobago Guyana side could be pointless if we make an effort to understand each other. But then what are we going to do with Essequibo? Guyana administers it. Venezuela feels it was unlawfully taken away from us. And then there is the example of Belize and Guatemala, which also had a similar dispute over borders. And also, Belize has Spanish Lookout oil field, and not too far away, Guatemala has San Petén oil fields. So it doesn't make any sense that we fight each other when we have common interests. All we need to do is to learn our neighbor's language. Then came the controversy of Chevron, with varying postures of Richard Grenell, Marco Rubio, and Donald Trump regarding Venezuelan foreign policy maximum pressure against oil industry lobbying. And it seems that we will maintain forever this dispute, which doesn't help anyone. And frankly, Venezuela doesn't even bother in those sanctions anymore, as Venezuela has learned how to export her oil with the help of countries like Trinidad and Tobago, which lend their country's name for bills of lading. And also Trinidad and Tobago is not pleased that a nice project we had on the Paria gas offshore fields was prohibited by United States sanctions, as a license for Shell oil company was not renewed. And I have also wondered why the ferry route that was organized by President Irfan Ali between Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana would not touch Venezuela, which is an intermediate country. And we have the president of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who wants a united Caribbean, including Venezuela and Colombia. And even northern Brazil, whose city of Boa Vista enjoys great relations with Lethem and Santa Elena de Guairén. So there are forces dividing us and there are forces uniting us, and I choose to conquer the forces of union of Latin America and the Caribbean. So comes the problem of language. Why am I recording this program in English? When this program was in Spanish, I had more views on my YouTube channel. So actually recording in English is making it more difficult for me to eventually monetize this channel, as I have not met the requirements yet, even though I am trying to. But if I do the program in Spanish, people from Brazil will not hear it. There is also a misconception that South American countries, or at least from the English-speaking perspective, they tend to confuse Spanish and Portuguese, which is not the case. For me, reading Portuguese is easy, but understanding spoken Portuguese is hard. Italian is actually easier to understand for me. And there is Suriname, which is perhaps the most friendly country in the whole hemisphere, with perfect relations with every single other country in South America and the Caribbean. Nobody pays too much attention to Suriname, but their unity focus has provided the current Secretary General of the Organization of American States. It was significant that in a summit that Luis Inácio Lula da Silva organized in Brasilia with South American leaders, and Maduro was not welcomed by many of them. In the picture, the president of Suriname appeared between the presidents of Guyana and Venezuela, because Suriname gets along well with everyone. There are not too many countries that have that virtue. But in Suriname they speak Dutch. And we also have Haiti, and they speak French. We also have French Guyana and Guadeloupe that are parts of France, but they are interconnected to South America and the Caribbean. So if I want to get along with speakers of Spanish, Portuguese, English, Dutch, and French, my program must be in English because it's the international language. So that is the reason for my Venezuelan, Colombian, Argentine, Spanish, and Mexican viewers why I am no longer recording in Spanish. YouTube subtitles are available anyway, and they are decent. I have been able to follow German shows. I understand no German, but I configure translations sometimes to Spanish, sometimes to English, and it works fine. But we must start making efforts for uniting Latin America and the Caribbean. So going back to the recent oil programs I was exploring about Chevron's licenses, I started researching on Venezuelan oil fields, particularly the Orinoco Belt. And everywhere I researched, I was told that they are extremely expensive and the oil is not marketable because it's heavy. And little by little, I started digging, until I found out that if Venezuela had state-of-the-art upgraders and we invest in enhanced oil recovery, in polymer injection, in gas injection, and we start making deals to professionalize the way we export our crude, circumventing the United States sanctions in a way acceptable by the United Nations, that could also decrease the sanctions penalty that Venezuelan oil gets. If you research in oil price, you can see that Venezuelan oil is sold at $51 and international oil is sold at $65. And also another penalty that Venezuelan oil has for production is our terrible road and electrical infrastructure. Electricity is needed for processes in the oil industry, and roads are needed to connect South Guárico, South Anzoátegui, and South Monagas to Puerto La Cruz, or maybe El Palito. Well, El Palito is further away, but El Palito could make sense for Boyacá fields further west in Guárico, as well as Puerto La Cruz. But still, a network of roads and electrical grids is needed. And then I started also researching on Guyana's oil miracle and became worried when I saw that the oil riches Guyana has now are comparable to the oil riches Venezuela had many decades ago, when just a tiny fraction of the revenue actually came to the country. And Guyana deserves a national oil, either a national oil industry or consortia of private Guyanese business in joint venture with other South American and international community businesses. And so came the idea of the Essequibo refinery, which could be used by both Venezuela and Guyana, which could deal with heavy crude and light crude, and it would need pipelines. And those pipelines between Venezuela and Guyana would also require a road between Maturin and Georgetown, or between Tumeremo and Georgetown as well, so that we can focus both on Barima Waini and Cuyuni Masaruni, and build the Essequibo Bridge, and build the Quarantine Bridge into Suriname. It seems that Guyana's infrastructure still has homework to do. And the hydroelectrical power of both Guyana and Venezuela can of course be extended, as we have so many untapped water resources for it. And then Suriname is starting its oil ventures. They have not produced much yet. They have Tulwifo refinery, which could be upgraded. And also we have in close vicinity the Kourou space station from the European Union, which is actually a South American asset. And since we have lithium, we have copper, we have other rare earth minerals, coltan, a road within the South American continent that can lead into French Guyana would be useful not for France but also for South America. Maybe we will have to ask the French if they can consider themselves a bicontinental country, because if so much of the territory of France is in South America, France should no longer be considered exclusively a European country. It has a space station that South Americans could use, especially as there are so many problems with using NASA facilities in the United States. You can even ask Elon Musk, who has SpaceX and who will probably be interested that opening up regionally Kourou space station will be useful for SpaceX, because as we all know, Tesla and artificial intelligence are having troubles in the United States because of whining and changing attitudes of President Donald Trump. And of course, the artificial intelligence could help building these new roads, as there would be Starlink sensors in all these new roads, so that in remote areas like the Amazon or Chocó in Colombia, we will get into Chocó in another program in detail. Chocó is a part of Colombia close to Darien in Panama, which has coasts on the Pacific and the Caribbean, and should be a hub focusing union between the two oceans, but instead it is in the most miserable condition due to negligence of Andean, Amazonian, and Caribbean Colombia. And of course, the same happens in Venezuela at the Orinoco Belt. The Orinoco Belt has the most extensive oil deposits in the world, but the towns in the southern llanos of Venezuela lack all infrastructure, as our country is developed mostly to the north or further south into Guyana. That is why I would like to repeat the Mapire Bridge project I was speaking about in the last show, that would get into Western Arco Minero. Arco Minero needs responsible mining because the environmental destruction is horrendous. It reminds me also the pollution in Lake Valencia and Lake Maracaibo. In Lake Valencia there is sewage and industrial waste, and in Lake Maracaibo there is petroleum waste. So all development activities of oil and mining must have a percentage for environment. I have spent a lot of time making lots of calculations, which it seems I should not be sharing here too much because my programs tend to be too technical. But if in the comments and if you subscribe to support my channel, you ask me for details, I have everything very well organized in my Excel sheets, and I can provide those details upon request. And of course, you should not forget Cuba. Living in Venezuela, I have somewhat access to Cuban culture because their political system, regardless if I like it or not, is important in the government system of Venezuela, even though Cubans and Venezuelans are seeking change. But the manner we have been seeking change, as the expatriates in Miami can tell you, have been decades trying to oust governments, and they have not succeeded. But I won't get into that. It is better not to. I have realized that the best way to unite the South American and Caribbean continents is to acknowledge the existence of different types of governments and try to unite them as CELAC is doing, and also the Organization of American States is doing. My 37 country project includes all the Americas except for Canada, because Canada has no territories south. And the only part of the United States I am including is Puerto Rico, and maybe I could include Key West in southernmost Florida if a ferry route is approved between Havana and Key West. But since that looks impossible, the only reference to the United States for the purpose of the Avanza Road and Ferry project will be the ferry stop in San Juan de Puerto Rico, needed to get from Cancun to Paria Peninsula through the Caribbean, traversing Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, United States Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Barbados, and a lot of more islands in between. The ferry routes have already been designed, but I am still in the process of checking all the cultural and tourist attractions that all these routes entail, because to present the project and make it palatable for the general public, I must demonstrate that the 2,300 locations scattered throughout the Americas each have a specific unique festival and tourist attraction to share for the benefit of the rest of the continent. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. I really need new subscribers. Most of the subscribers I have are Spanish-speaking subscribers, and they don't seem too interested in watching my programs any longer since I switched to English. And peace for Guyana, and let's have a united, advancing South America and Caribbean of 37 countries, united by energy, mining, petroleum, artificial intelligence, space sector, online education on oil recovery methods, cinema, as I work at the Cine TV, Escuela de Cine y Televisión in Caracas. We also offer courses online in Spanish, leading to university equivalent degrees in cinematography, and the new fields of sustainable trade and environmentally friendly construction of roads, oil pipelines for the benefit of all. In the case of Venezuela, just as we have helped Cuba endure the embargo, we could also help Peru regain their 200,000 barrel a day they used to have, but they had lots of oil leaks, and probably because of faulty technology or lack of maintenance. We need a continental strategy with stiff and stringent measures of environmental awareness, just like the European Union does, which actually seems to be the path that Suriname is already applying. Since Suriname is starting from scratch, it will be interesting to see how these environmental regulations by Suriname will pay off. And of course, we need to develop the southern parts of French Guyana, Suriname, Tigray, which has a border with dispute with Guyana. Guyana has border disputes with both Suriname and Venezuela. But we should all live together and share our territory. We are South Americans. Simón Bolívar, Miguel de San Martín, all our liberators sought a united South America. Language should not be a barrier. They speak 4 languages in Switzerland. English and French are official languages in Canada. Why can't we do the same in South American countries? At least English, Spanish, and Portuguese, which are the 3 most spoken languages, should be an aim of basic proficiency for all our elementary schools. If you feel you have nothing to do with your life, give a thought to all these projects that seem like a dream but are achievable after a massive amount of combined work.